Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight for this short little conversation. This is called From the Vault, a discussion with one of the hosts of Cellar Door Skeptics. From the Vault is a small series that I've kind of started to go in between the shows, kind of like extra content, a way to get to know me as a host a little bit better, because I get to spill some of my feelings that maybe I'd be a little more reserved to share on the show, as I'm giving Chris Hanna kind of some of the other side of the conversation. So tonight you get an unbridled attempt at looking into the mind of Christopher Tanner. I've recently been having conversations with people at work a little bit more. They've been talking about pay raises and, we're restructuring some of our office around. And one of the topics that came up was, equality in pay. Our company has some lower positions that pay more than minimum wage, but probably not quite as much as what you could get going to another facility. A lot of the people we bring in as temps, and again, they probably don't have the highest wage. And so what happened was a conversation came up about the $15 an hour increase over at McDonald's. And for me, I have no issue with that. I understand why people may, but the evidence doesn't support inflation going up. The evidence doesn't support that it's going to create middle management positions that are going to disappear because there's not going to be any money for them. And our company, while they don't offer bottom line pay for people, they probably don't offer the highest pay. And so we had a conversation about pay inequality and the $15 an hour increase and what that will do. And for me, while I don't know 100% the science behind the economic side of it, will it raise inflation? Probably not. The evidence I've seen does not show that. Will it get rid of middle management positions? No. Will it mean there's less hiring? No. What that means is we're looking at a bottom down approach, right? So on the bottom side of things, we have people that made $7 an hour that couldn't provide their families, had to constantly struggle. Now we give them $15 an hour. Well, what that's going to do is that's going to drive the need to pay higher level positions a little bit more. Well, that money's going to come from somewhere. And if the corporations want to continue to work, unless they create some sort of a monopoly where you can't pay people, then there's no way that we're not going to see pay increases and raises in dollar amounts for those in the low middle to middle class sector. And we'll probably see a more equal distribution of pay income. But what this actually led to was a more important conversation. My boss all of a sudden goes, well, I give 10% to my church, and so, I feel good about that. And so I told him a story. A company I worked for before, the owners both took a salary. They paid part of their house payment out of the company money because the wife worked from home half the time. So they were able to write off her office for part of their income. All their cars were paid for, all their health insurance, everything they paid for out of the company pocket. And then they paid their employees $8 to $9 an hour. Well, they were complaining about that as well. And one time they brought up, hey, well, I donate 15% of my income. Well, if your income is $200,000 a year between the two of you and your bills are $1,000, think about how much extra income. So can you give an extra 5% over top of that to your church? Sure. Is it wrong that they give that money to the church? I have a different opinion on it, obviously, but in all reality, it's not horrible that they give their money to the church. But the difference is instead of giving that extra 5%, so you figure 10% of $200,000 is $20,000 plus another 5%, which is another $10,000. So they could take that $30,000 and redistribute it evenly amongst the employees. So that $30,000 could equal out to the 20 employees that they had. It would equal out to a little over $1,000 a year. So that money would be able to increase somebody's wages 25 to 50 cents an hour. So is that a lot? No, but it is a little bit. And it's helping give back. And so my problem is that it's not that we're taking this money and saying, hey, we're going to give $15 an hour hike increases, and this is going to be great for the economy. And so the biggest problem isn't that they donated the 15% to their church, though for me, that's not something I would endorse, given that I don't like the church and different aspects of the church. But that's what they chose to give it to. But if they had taken that money, that 15%, and given it back to their employees, they could raise their employee salaries 25 cents to 50 cents an hour. And you think at a $200,000 salary, you have $20,000 is 10% and $30,000 is 15%. So you have that money you could give right back to your employees. And those are the employees that are using the funds. Because if you got somebody making $8 an hour, what are they going to do? They're going to have to go down to these stores and use the WIC. They're going to have to use food stamps. They're going to have to use government assistance and government insurance because you don't pay them enough to make a living wage. And because they don't have a living wage, and because you're giving it to your church, and the churches aren't turning around and saying, hey, we're going to help enhance salaries or wages. We're going to send it to fucking Bibles and give it to priests and ministers and pastors to go out and preach the word of God. And so because they're giving that money to the church and the church isn't giving it back to the poor, we therefore have a dilemma where we're not letting trickle-down effect work at all. Now, I don't personally think trickle-down effect works, but if you subscribe to that field or that logic, that's not helping it work. Churches aren't doing it. So if a church has a $500,000 income a year, they're going to take $100,000 out to pay their bills and upgrade things, and they got to take more money out to do the marketing, and they got to pay their pastors and their salary, and then they got to pay their assistant pastors, and they got to turn around and they got to pay the clerks and the people keeping the music up, and they got to buy new equipment, and they got to update this, and they got to have kids programs, and then they got to have outreach programs. But none of the outreach programs actually attacks what is wrong in our society. In our society, we have an issue with lower income people not getting correct medical services, not getting correct food benefits, not getting the best education. And so all it does is it creates a perpetual fucking cycle. That's what the fuck it does. So go ahead, give your 15 fucking percent to the church, but don't bitch when we ask to fucking raise taxes to help pay for those that needs. Don't bitch when we fucking want to raise minimum wage to $15 an hour because they goddamn people can't afford to live anymore. If we work on building people from the bottom up, we look at tackling solutions from the bottom up, we will find that we're going to be able to help people more and better. And if you think about it, if you have people that are really poor, right, and you start handing them food or their money, they're grateful. But if you start increasing their wage, they could go out and buy the food and buy the money. What do you think they're going to want to do? They're going to probably buy something for somebody else. They're going to see this as a way of how we can return the favor to somebody else. And so starting from the bottom down is the way we need to do. And then working our way up, so that way we can help empower people to take control of their lives, to help redefine the government. You want to get rid of taxes, you want to get rid of all this very leftist government control, then let's empower the people to be able to take care of that so that we no longer have to worry about whether they're going to get their money from the government anymore. You can't live on fucking $9 an hour. You can't live on $10 an hour. How the fuck could you support a family in today's society on that? And don't say, hey, you cannot have a cell phone, or you don't need internet, or you don't need Comcast cable. While I agree that maybe some of those things maybe a little bit extend some people's reach, at some point we have to have a quality of life. You can't just work full time at $10 an hour, turn around, come home, feed your family, sit and stare, read, and go right back to work and never do anything, never enjoy your life. What is that? It seems like we're making cattle to do the labor so that the rest of us can go and enjoy life. How fair is that? And I know this is probably a little off, and again, it's a corporate greed rant, I guess, if you want to call it that. But my problem is we need to help people understand and change where they donate their money to and what it is. And if we want to start decreasing the different things of Medicaid, if we want to get the government out of these different avenues, then we need to work to figure out how we can empower people so that they no longer have to go and use these subsidies. If they make $15 an hour, they're going to be able to feed their families a little bit better. They're going to be able to pay their rent. They're going to be able to own a car that may not break down and get them to lose their job. They're going to be able to take their kids and let their kids play sports or join an art studio for a little while and do a few things. But if we don't help empower these people, all we're going to do is create another situation where we continue to complain and don't have a fucking solution for it. So thank you guys so much. This is From the Vault from Christopher Tanner, co-host on Cellar Door Skeptics. Check out our future episodes of Cellar Door Skeptics right here on Spreaker, Facebook, and anywhere else you can imagine we will be posting. Thank you guys, and prepare for the revolution.
This has been a pleasant presentation of Cellar Door